Be with you from the 2024 MEC annual meeting. We are at the Jackson Convention Complex, and there are nearly 1,000 people that are registered for this event that will get going officially about 9 o'clock this morning. Registration gets started around 8:30, but in the meantime, we get to visit with Bill Cork. He's Executive Director at the Mississippi Development Authority. He is the chief business bringer to the state of Mississippi, hopefully.
Got a big team helping. That's what we do.
That's a really bad title, but that's what it's about, right? It's about making companies perhaps look at Mississippi in a different way than they have in the past.
Right. Well, we kind of consider ourselves the chief investment officer, kind of like the state's investment bank in a lot of ways, trying to find those great business opportunities that are a good fit for Mississippi and then work with them to help them locate here. We're, of course, a lot of our business is just helping our existing industries expand, and that's that's also really important.
That's an interesting thought when you say chief investment officer, because so much, I think, and I need to learn more about MDA, it's about making sure that the financial tools and resources are in place to help companies as they launch. But it's recruiting also, right? So, I mean, it's a combination of selling Mississippi and convincing industry that this is a good place, but then also the other part of it is making sure those tools are in place?
That's right, Richard. I mean, it's a full spectrum of corporate development for the state. I mean, we're trying to help grow the state's GDP. That happens in a variety of ways. It happens through growing tourism. It happens, growing our film culture here, and as well as recruitment of industry. But, the foundation of any economic development strategy is to promote existing industry and business retention and expansion. I mean, that's where most of the jobs in the state come from. So we always talk about the shiny new toys that we get here, and I know we'll talk more about that. But the reality is that MEC's membership and MMA's membership and organizations like that, they're the economic drivers for the state. And that's why our partnership with MEC is so important, because they help us promote a business climate that's attractive. And that attractive business climate and happy businesses in Mississippi are the best testimonial for new companies wanting to come here.
What is your mandate?
Our mandate is to grow the state's GDP. I mean, that's really what it is. That's as simple as that. We have a mission statement is to be world-class in everything we do, and we're in a lot of areas. We do, in addition to international trade and investment, which we focus on, we handle existing industries, small business, where we work on entrepreneurship in partnership with Innovate Mississippi. We have the state's film office, the state's energy office. We do disaster recovery. We recruit retirees to the state. Anything that has to do with promoting the state's business climate and creating new economic activity, MDA is the leading agency in the state to do all that.
Tell me a little bit more about the relationship with small business. And here's the reason I ask that. So my wife is a small business owner. I've got lots of friends that have small businesses, and we hear a lot of lip service for small business, right? The backbone of the community, and, you don't get there. But then you step away from that, and you're like, yeah, but what does that mean, right? What level of support is there for small businesses, from, 5-person businesses to businesses that are probably approaching 100 employees but are just kind of under that threshold, but still kind of fall into the small business category?
Right. So of course, the Secretary of State's office, they're the principal point of entry for new businesses registering in the state of Mississippi, and they have a wide range of resources and a portal that allows them to kind of get directed to the small business development centers in the state, or banking and financial related issues, or and many of the universities also have adjunct programs to assist small businesses in helping develop their business plans and helping those evolve. At MDA, we have a very specific program called the Small Business Credit Initiative Program, which is an $85 million pot of money to assist small businesses in coming into being and to scale. So $15 million or so of that money we have parked over at Innovate Mississippi, which is a venture capital fund, essentially equity. Yeah. And so small businesses can go and have their programs evaluated, and if they need early stage capital, this is a program that allows them to participate. It requires a 50-50 private sector match, So they have to come in with some of their own investment. But the state, through a federal program, is helping on the venture side. And then we've got small business loan programs and loan guarantee programs and other things to provide a bridge for small business between that venture capital, that mezzanine financing, and then traditional bank financing that they may have. So we have programs in place throughout Mississippi, but also at MDA to support small businesses in that kind of scale. Now, we're not known for sort of a tech or entrepreneurial ecosystem in Mississippi.
Sure.
Okay, compared to other states, it's pretty small, and it's because of our rural character. We don't have a lot of like major clusters of entrepreneurship, but we have a lot of entrepreneurs in Mississippi.
Yeah.
But they're scattered around, and so our challenge as an agency is to be able to reach out, find those folks where they are, and help them get banked, help them get the support they need so that they can grow in place rather than kind of have to migrate to Jackson or one of the major urban centers.
It's fascinating to me, and always has been, that people who have a true entrepreneurial spirit think about the world differently, right? And they think about opportunity differently. I worked for a guy one time that's has built a couple of successful small businesses, and he said very flatly, he said, my goal is to make Oxford, Mississippi a smaller version of Austin, Texas. Maybe that's an aggressive thought, but in terms of scale, it's an interesting concept because that means technology and a community that becomes kind of an incubator. Is that a reasonable vision for Mississippi?
I think it's a very reasonable vision for Mississippi, and I think, we're sitting right here in the heart of Jackson, which has the most number of college students of any community in the state.
Yeah.
There is absolutely, we attract more young people starting their freshman year of college into the Jackson metro area than any other place in Mississippi. There's no reason why we can't take some of that wonderful talent and turn it and convert it into entrepreneurs and folks that want to invest and stay in Mississippi and grow businesses here. And that's true of Oxford and Starkville and all around the state, Hattiesburg, the coast.
And I use Oxford as an example because that's where I live. I'm not trying to be partial to I could have just as easily said Laurel, I suppose.
No, but most people fail the trivia question I ask them when I ask people, where are the most college graduates coming from in the state every year? I mean, they almost always fail to recognize Jackson as the epicenter for talent. I mean, it's true. And this is the thing about economic development that I think the listeners should be really, advised of, and that is data matters. We have to be focusing in Mississippi on facts, not feelings, right? And we run with our heartstrings here a lot. And I think we have to get back down to basics and understand where's the talent, where are the ideas, where's the momentum happening, and then find and grow where those areas are. And so Oxford's a classic example of an amazing a collection of intellectual assets. They've got some super real estate. They've got aggressive economic development people up there. Ryan Miller, my friend who was running Accelerate Mississippi, is now taking over the Economic Development Foundation up in Oxford. I'm
sad for Mississippi, but I am glad for my hometown. I'm glad to have my friend back also.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's a good friend of mine as well, and it's going to be interesting to see what he can do up there to, with his experience down here in Jackson, how he's going to shape that talent-based ecosystem in Oxford. So, we're pregnant with possibilities all over the state, and we got wonderful people working on these issues, and I just am real optimistic about the state as a whole.
Visiting with Bill Cork. He's the executive director of the Mississippi Development Authority. Running out of time in this segment, but we are going to talk about some of the larger projects, some of the headline-grabbing projects, and maybe just kind of tease before we go to break. The AWS facility in Madison County. There was a lot of talk about how much money it was going to be. Some of those numbers are already being revised a little bit, but not in a negative way.
They're going up.
Like you start this thing and like, oh, it's $10 billion, and you're like, oh, wait, no, it's not $10 billion. It's something more than that.
Yeah, it's more than 20. So, and we knew that.
What were those initial estimates?
Well,
or that you felt comfortable releasing publicly?
Well, the company, this is a real estate play for data centers, okay? And so if the company releases the size of the facilities and the dollar value of the facilities early on, they signal to the market what their pricing is going to be. So we're very, very cautious about what we do, but Roger Wiener, who's the head of economic development and development for AWS, gave a speech at Millsaps last week in which he divulged that the number really is 2x what they've announced publicly.
That's incredible.
It's a huge number.
And that's something that you probably knew.
We did know that going in.
Yeah.
And we also know that they're not the only ones in the market right now. we have multiple of the big 5 companies here looking at Mississippi at the present time.
So the other thing I was going to ask, and we're out of time here, so there is, you know what, let's hold this for the break. I want to try and flesh this out just a little bit more about kind of the copycat syndrome that exists for businesses, because it happens at retail business locations, but it's also happening with big business and the development that's happening here in Mississippi. We've got more coming up with you. We're broadcasting from the 2024 MEC annual meeting, visiting with Bill Cork, Executive Director at MDA. Quick timeout. Back with you right after this on SuperTalk. Welcome back. This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi, coming to you from the 2024 MEC annual meeting. That's the Mississippi Economic Council. And we're visiting with Bill Cork. He's the Executive Director of the Mississippi Development Authority. I thought it was interesting.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, I was going to say. Stumble along. Scott was saying we sound like an agency, a state agency, because we're the Mississippi Economic Council. We are not, but MDA, the Mississippi Development Authority, very much is.
That's right, and we're really equivalent to the Commerce Department of other states. And we confuse the external stakeholders with MDA too. They think we're the Missile Defense Agency instead of the Mississippi Development Authority. So
that feels like a different conversation for a different
day. Yeah.
So we were talking about some of the big plays. Obviously, AWS news in Madison County has been huge, and you referenced just a second ago the Amazon. I guess you said their chief lobbyist or one of their economic development people leaking the news that they were actually spending twice what they said they were spending in terms of development in Mississippi. So I wanted to talk about kind of the copycat. So I'm going to a smaller retail business model. People have talked about Starbucks and Chick-fil-A, right? Mm-hmm. They have researchers who go in and do all kinds of studies to decide, okay, this is where we put our location based on traffic counts, and we've got a formula that works. And so if you see a Starbucks go in or a Chick-fil-A go in, if there's an opportunity to buy real estate around it, you should, because there are more businesses that are coming.
That's right.
That's just that kind of been the model everywhere that they've been. So with a project like this, when Amazon says, we're going here, does that mean that Google or Meta or some of these other big companies might not be far behind?
Well, the short answer to that question is yes. Obviously can't discuss specifics, but let's understand, the reason why, say, you get
and I mentioned those company names because they're similar type
companies. Yeah. Well, look, the reason why Amazon ended up here was because they were first to recognize that we were at the hub of 2 transcontinental, large-scale dark fiber optic routes. Okay?
All right, you got to pause right there and explain what that means, because I think that's a new line of verbiage for a lot of people.
Right. Well, and it's one of the key and unique differentiators for the Jackson metro area. Over the last couple years, private developers have developed large, giant pipelines of fiber optic cables that connect Chicago to New Orleans and from Dallas out to the East Coast, Atlanta, and into Virginia. And they came under the river on the east-west route about 18 months ago and finally completed that route. So we are at the crossroads, literally. I mean, that's a Mississippi thing, but we're not at the crossroads in the blues, but we're in the crossroads of fiber. And when you have redundant fiber for transcontinental fiber, these hyperscale data centers are like, we got to have that. We want to be there because now we can connect to 2 of these things and have these redundant transcontinental feeds to pipe massive data across the United States. It's like being at the crossroads of 2 interstates like we have here in Jackson, or the crossroads of 2 railroads like we have here in Jackson. So it's just the next level of infrastructure, but it's the information superhighway. We also have available power. And so when you have power, which these things are huge power consumers, and Entergy Mississippi stepped up and really put together a compelling proposal for the company. You've got the fiber and you have the land. And, Joey Deason and the crew up in Madison County had been working for literally a decade assembling that Madison County megasite. Yeah. You got those 3 things, it's magic. So Amazon was the first to find it and recognize it. Now, once they did, everybody else's alarms went off. They're like, what the heck is going on in Mississippi? And they all came knocking. In fact, during the special session for the AWS legislation that we passed, there was at least 3 lobbyists for 3 of those companies you named in the hallways at the legislature watching what we were doing. And now that we've done the deal and signed it and they're under construction, the hornets are circling the nest.
Did you get the impression, and I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, but as you have talked with people either directly or indirectly from some of those other companies, did you get the impression that they were impressed with ultimately the deal that the legislature passed for Amazon?
It is the cutting-edge, state-of-the-art legislative framework for hyperscale data centers. There's nobody in the United States that's matching it, and that is one of the attractions. So not only were we leading in the infrastructure development and the proactive marketing approach with AWS, but this legislature and this governor recognized the opportunity to make a technological transformation in the state and put together a package and mostly it's tax issues. I mean, Amazon didn't want cash from us. They didn't ask for any cash incentives. What they wanted was a long-term, competitive tax environment that they would pay their fair share. They're going to be the largest taxpayer in the state when this is done, and they just wanted to pay their fair share and not be penalized for being so big. And our tax structure, particularly on sales and use tax, has a 7% tax on computer equipment. Well, if you're investing literally tens of billions of dollars in computer equipment, you don't want to pay 7% on that. So we had to come up with a way to kind of get that lower and more sustainable. And then when you think about the fact that computers turn over about every 3 or 5 years, like your phone or your home PC, if you had to pay the tax on that every time you turned it over, you just wouldn't locate in a place like that. And so Arkansas, for example, had passed a law a year ago exempting the sales tax on computer equipment. So we were up against people like the folks in Arkansas to compete for this. So we had to do something different. And what we did was we evaluated the tax structures across the United States, found out who was competitive. We put together a package that was equally competitive and then just a little bit better so that we could attract them in here. So that was how it all came together, but you couldn't get an Amazon and you can't get a Aluminum Dynamics or an EV battery project without a strong local ground game. These projects we put the icing on the cake in Jackson, but it's the local economic developers that are the heroes in this. They're the ones that do the block and tackle every day to make this happen.
And then there's another piece of the conversation about workforce, right? And we're going to talk with Courtney Taylor at Accelerate Mississippi coming up, and Crystal Chapman, who is with the Computer Science Teachers Association, about the importance of preparing Mississippi to be able to fill. Now, the Amazon situation may be a little bit different, but to continue to attract in the automotive space, robotics, engineers.
These advanced manufacturing plants are not your father's Oldsmobile, okay? When you go through these things, they're cleaner than a doctor's office. It's robots and computers everywhere. The technicians that are working in these things have to have a combination of, mechanical, electrical skills, computer programmers. These factories of the future are really advanced skill sets and require individuals with tremendous, and good backgrounds in critical thinking and problem solving and sort of an independent mindset about how you approach your workflows. It's a very challenging environment to train the workers of the future, but the ones that can adapt to that and learn this program are going to make excellent money. I mean, career-sustaining wages, and we're seeing that from Aluminum Dynamics, which had $93,000 average wages, 1,000 of those, about $60,000 a year wages with this new EV battery project. Amazon, in Roger Wiener's speech the other day, said that the badged Amazon employees up there, that's not including their contractors and other vendors, but the badged employees will make more than $80,000 a year in Madison County. These jobs of the future are the kind of jobs that Governor Reeves, from the very beginning of his first term, said these are the kind of jobs we need in Mississippi. Family-sustaining wages.
Right.
We're tired of competing for the low-cost, low-wage, commodity-type businesses. We want really, really strong stuff so that we can try to transform this state into, an economically vibrant, highly attractive, family-supporting kind of economy, and that's and he's fulfilling that mission.
No doubt. Bill Cork, Executive Director at the Mississippi Development Authority. visiting with us on the Gallo Radio Show. I think we've convinced Bill to hang for one more segment. We'll kind of try and put a bow on some of these conversations. Whether we're talking about local power cooperatives, local electric companies, or we're talking about the really big entities like Entergy, Mississippi Power. I'm not trying to leave anybody out if there's another major player.
Yeah,
TVA,
right, sure.
in the northern part of the state of Mississippi. We only think about them when our lights go out, right? I mean, storm comes through, tree falls down on a power line. Oh, somebody called the power company. Do people understand how important the power companies are to economic development?
Well, they should if they don't, because they're absolutely essential. If you take a look, Area Development, which is one of our trade association magazines, just did a survey of corporations and site selectors in our industry, and power cost and availability are in the top 5 continuously now, and that number has been increasing because of the power demand of these facilities. Our power providers and partners, folks like Entergy Mississippi, Mississippi Power, TVA, and the Cooperative Energy Collection of companies, are absolutely at the forefront of this transformation in Mississippi, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Visiting with Bill Cork. We'll wrap up this conversation. When we come back with you, we'll also wrap up the 7 o'clock hour, which is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Back to the MEC annual meeting.